know what, Jamie? Let's pop off right now. We got to get started.
We got to go.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's get the people in the chat. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final Hit and Hustle post-game instant reaction show for the 2023 season. Notre Dame beats Oregon State in the Sun Bowl 40-8. I am Greg Flammang, your host, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. We just watched Notre Dame beat a pretty short-handed Oregon State team. I actually kind of felt bad. Like those guys, they didn't really have a chance with all the losses that they incurred. It just wasn't there for them. And then when Silas Bolden went out with the hamstring, they really had no chance. They didn't have a chance to block Notre Dame. They had lost their tackles and another lineman up front. And so they were really shorthanded. They didn't have an answer for Notre Dame, just blocking them defensively. And then Notre Dame just had more on their end on offense. And they were able to dominate the game. It was never really close. Oregon State never really threatened to do anything until basically they scored the touchdown in garbage time. So, but we're going to talk about that. It was a fun game to watch, and it was a nice way to cap the 2023 season. Notre Dame finishes 10-3. They get their 10th win, which is pretty important in my opinion. I think you want to do those things. You want to win those games. You want to get the 10 wins, double-digit win season. So it's nice to get that off the schneid there for Marcus Freeman and getting a double-digit win for him. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If this is your first time catching us, please subscribe to our channel. Please hit the like button on this show, and please hit the notification bell so whenever it is we are going live. Links to this show and the podcast are going to be in the description below, so you can check us out on our pod feed there. And before we get started, just one last call for the ISD ESQ clothing special, 25% off. I didn't check with GA. I figure it's still the holiday season. And so, New Year's is coming up. So one last call for the ISD 25 online purchase of the bamboo dress shirt, which you've seen on all of Notre Dame's favorite players and coaches. It's the most comfortable bamboo dress shirt made of sustainable bamboo fibers. Your bamboo shirt is naturally odor resistant, wrinkle resistant, even machine washable, also 3 degrees cooler than cotton. So you can sweat it out watching games and, for whatever it is you're sweating out, you can comfortably put on your bamboo dress shirt and it'll be 3 degrees cooler than cotton. So you use ISD25 to get 25% off your online purchase at esqclothing.com or visit God at Chicago showroom to get your perfect custom fit. Jamie, I thought there were some good performances in this game. First of all, Merry Christmas to you. We're coming up on Happy New Year. Merry Christmas to all those who are watching our show. We were light on shows coming into it. People were sick, family, holidays. Jamie's traveling. He's all over the country. He's all over the North America continental, North American continent. And so, but we're here to talk about this. Jamie, what are your main takeaways from the game today?
I think what you said at the beginning about it was just so obvious to me that Notre Dame had just a way better roster out there than Oregon State. And that was going to be the case because it was basically the same amount of opt-outs. You could say give or take, maybe Oregon State had a little bit more overall in terms of like their top guys on their team. Like they had more guys on defense that were missing too. So that hurt them as well in their back seven. But like, I just think that you look at it, they don't have the guys to come in and replace those guys who are like all Pac-12 level guys. Cole Branson, as much as the guy was the starter last year. Well, he was the third stringer this year, right?
Yeah.
Like, and he got to play with those two tackles who were starting. Like, he got to play with all those other guys last year. So, it's a big difference. He didn't get a chance without all that talent. Their top 2 receivers are out. Their top tight end is transferred. They just didn't have much of a chance. And it was just so, which was always why the line looked stupid to me. Like, I thought that
It dropped. It went from 6 to like 6.5 to 4.5 or something. People are texting me like, "What? Did someone get hurt?" I'm like, "I don't think so." That was crazy, Jamie.
Yeah, I just think that was insane. And I mean, I got it at -6.5, and I mean, obviously that worked out pretty well. Um, I just think that it was just the depth of the programs. And I think that's just something that you're just going to see where Notre Dame recruits at a different level than Oregon State. So you can say if like Oregon State had all their best guys out there, that I mean, they probably win that game against Notre Dame if every single one of those guys are out and then all the guys opted out for Notre Dame. But even if all the guys are there for Notre Dame probably still wins the game too because they're just a team. All of a sudden, if like within the game, like Bolden has the hamstring, well, that's like a huge loss. Like they can't afford those kind of losses against a Notre Dame. So I think that was like the main takeaway. And I just thought that Notre Dame staff did a fantastic job coaching this game. Like they completely outcoached Oregon State. To be fair, that was another thing why the line made no sense. You have interim head coach who's not coaching. He wasn't coaching. So the defensive coordinator who's Trent Bray, great defensive coordinator, done a great job there for many years. He's not coaching in the game. So you have an interim to the interim, coaching that the actual game, the head coach. You have someone else calling the plays on offense. You have someone else calling the plays on defense. You have all these guys who left for Jonathan Smith's staff. It just wasn't fair. Like they were just, it was going to be too much. I'm actually kind of happy that they at least got off in their moment. Like they had the fat guy 2-point conversion.
Yeah. They got the lineman in there.
They got the one nice touchdown. Like, they at least had that because it had to have been a miserable experience. Like, but just even right away, it was like they tried that punt, the fake punt, and it was just like, man, you could just see that coming from a mile away.
Yeah.
Like that was just it was just so obvious. And obviously, great play by Josh Burnham to blow that up. And, Notre Dame was ready for it. But just all those kind of things where it was like, they only had 3 called runs in the first half against Notre Dame's defense, which is the number 1 pass defense in the country, which everyone's back except for Cam Hart, and it just made no sense to do that. And you have all these tackles these 2 new tackles and a new guard that these guys aren't going to be able to protect. Go Branson, they couldn't. And that was just kind of the story. They had to find. I'm surprised you didn't see a little bit more like trickeration and stuff, like just a little bit like gadgety type stuff to try to get on the perimeter, and hopefully you get a play here or there. Like they just didn't even really try that.
It's hard because like we've kind of seen it before with like Notre Dame in like the Clemson game, for example. Like when you're only having like 4-play drives, 5-play drives, like it's hard to get into some of the things you've been working on, right? Like they couldn't get anything going at all. And so that just made it very hard for them. And look, Notre Dame's going to make it hard for everybody, right? Like that's just the type of defense that that Notre Dame has. So, it's just they were up against it. And then Notre Dame, like the way that they were moving the ball to, like, even though that they didn't move the ball great in the first half, they didn't have that many drives. They only had 4 real drives in the first half. They missed a field goal where it was a long field goal, but like that was because of a sack that Angeli took. So that kind of like Notre Dame was able to move the ball. So Oregon State didn't have the ball that much. And just kind of some breaking news. Jordan Faison was named MVP of the game, which surprises me considering Angeli threw for 3 touchdowns. Faison had a great game on his own, 5 catches for 115.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah, so he had 5 for 115 yards. Steve Angeli, 14 of 18 for 212 yards. Jaden Thomas, good to see him back, right? Like it was good to see him healthy. It was clear that he was a different kind of player. They were using him different. And you noted like a bunch of his catches from Thomas, like you noted on Twitter or X, that, not like a perfect game from Gino Guidugli by any means at all, but he did have some third down winners in this one.
Yeah, a lot
of them. That really set Notre Dame up. I thought the touchdown to Faison was really smart, like a really smart route concept where you basically, the way that Oregon State plays defense, they're going to switch those corners if you basically cross your wide receivers. And so you have the one corner sitting in outside leverage. You take Faison outside and then you stem him back inside. The corner is going to be out of position, out leveraged, just naturally based on the way that they cover it. Really smart play by him. And they get Faison in the end zone. I thought that was really smart. They had another rollout on third down where they got Jaden Thomas going. And they got him on a nice little route concept. So they had some really good third down winners there. And that, like, I think that it more than anything else, like, was really impressive from Steve Angeli, right? Like, only missed 4 passes the whole game. I thought, like, 2 of those were just kind of, I don't want to say poor throws, but Gary Danielson, like, it wasn't the greatest broadcast by any means, but he did bring up a couple of things where, if Steve Angeli was more comfortable and had more experience throwing to these guys, those passes probably get completed, especially the pass to Raritan that he missed. I thought the deep post to Faison, where if he led him towards the middle of the field, that's going to be a touchdown. So, they had some really good concepts going there. And look, at 14 of 18, 212, like that's over 10 yards per attempt. You're going to take it every single time. 3 touchdowns, didn't really put the ball in danger at all. Faison goes for 5 for 115. Like we said, 5 of 6 targets as well. The one miss was going to be a touchdown on kind of a poor throw. Jaden Thomas, 4 of 5. Jaden Greathouse, 2 of 2. Raritan, 2 of 4. What did you think of? I mean, the play that they drew up near the goal line, Jamie, where there's a lot going on like the 2-yard line. There's a lot going on with the backs turned and you got players all over the place.
The play action, the fake reverse.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point in the game, I think it's kind of like you're just in your bag and you're just like,
they've been working.
We're winning this. We're winning this game. That's my opinion. Was they were like, let's just have fun in this. That's the kind of situation where it's like Oregon State never got in a position to run their little like wildcat pass thing until like late, and they're like, well, we might as well just dump it out now. And I think that was just the thing where they had put that in for the game, and they were just like, you know what, we're not losing this game, so it doesn't matter. Let's just take a shot and do it. That was just my opinion of that call. Like, was it the greatest call at the time? Nah, I don't think so. Like, and especially with how aggressive OSU was on the short yardage stuff.
Yeah.
If you're gonna run a play action, you got to run like a little quick hit. That was what I thought you had to do based on like how those linebackers were just cheating. Those linebackers for OSU played all right. Like, they're not guys who've played a lot this year. And really, like, 2 really young guys who, kind of showed out in terms of physicality and stuff. I mean, they had some trouble tackling Love and Price, but everybody did. Those guys ran really well. That was the other thing. OSU had all their front 4. All those guys were there. So they had their starting front 4. Yeah. So in that sense, too, that was one area where you could kind of see Notre Dame being put in a bad position, especially because, they're like, I think they were 21st in sack rate. Like, they get after it. They're definitely like one of the better, like, they're top 20 in havoc rate. They caused a lot of havoc in this game, actually, their defense. I just thought that what Guidugli did really well in this game was he didn't get cute with outside of that one play. Like, he didn't get cute with a lot of stuff.
Right.
They ran inside zone and duo like a ton. Like it must have been like 70% of the calls in this game.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't going to, and they ran, I mean, counter tray too, right? They ran counter tray, but they tried to run pin and pull once. It was like, nah, that didn't like, and as soon as it didn't work, they were like, we're not going back. You know, it was,
Yeah.
they didn't try to do anything like crazy to, like he wasn't putting it on a reel. You know what I mean? He coached it to win the game, which was smart because the line, and I saw like maybe it was Rajon or somebody in the chat said, you know, the line was like way better, like really good. And they weren't really good, actually. They were okay. They were just okay in this game. If you look at it, there wasn't a lot of big holes for the backs.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't. There was a lot of, you know, one guy, you know, 4 guys doing good, one guy maybe not doing as good on a lot of stuff, right? And it doesn't mean that most of the guys didn't play pretty well or grade out okay in the game. They just were, but by no means were dominant. They look like a lot of new guys working together, right? That's how I saw it. And then you could see in pass pro too. Guidugli like moved the pocket. He got Angeli out on like sprint outs, on play action, outside of the pocket. And it was always, even on like the 3rd and longs, which weren't like 3rd and 14 or whatever, but like 3rd and 7, the ball was getting out quick. And it was like short of the sticks, which, you know, normally people hate, but they schemed it up so those plays would be open, though those guys would have a chance to make plays after the catch, and they did. Right? So I thought he used motion tremendously well in this game.
Yeah.
To get guys open. That is also something was like as we kind of transition into Mike Denbrock. Mike Denbrock is like a heavy motion guy. He's one of the most frequent, you know, runs motion more frequently than like way above average. So I believe they led the SEC in motion.
Yeah.
In terms of the last 2 years. So that is something that pre-snap motion, excuse me. So that's something that I think you saw today, but you're going to continue to kind of see. And let's just face it, Notre Dame has to scheme up some of these guys too, because although they have, I think some of these guys are going to be better at winning one-on-one. When you go against really, really top corners, you got to scheme these kind of things. And Oregon State didn't have like lights out corners.
Yeah.
So, but if you go against those top guys, you can't just win regular. And that was the thing with like Oregon State. It was like, well, they hit a slant. It's like, okay, you know, they hit the little two-step drop slant, got a nice first down. Next play, they try to go slant again. And I was like, well, it was just obvious Christian Gray was going to break that up. Like,
right. And that's a great play by Christian Gray too. But it's
a
good point. Like he sat on it. Like to your point, like he sat on it and he knew, like you said, like he knew it was coming. He sat on it. He almost got a big pick out of it. So it's just like, yeah, like there was a lot of just kind of like predictability on their end. I do think that we should talk about Steve Angeli a little bit because Joey Goodert or Goodare, I don't know how to say your last name. Sorry, but he makes a good point here. You do everything you reasonably can to keep Angeli in the program after that performance. I do think we should give a good amount of time to Angeli here because I was very impressed with him. Like I every pass, like I love how he spins it. He spins it nice. The ball comes out accurate. It comes out hard. He has good command with the ball. Like where he wants it to go, it's going, right? I didn't think there was one pass where I was like, man, that's kind of ugly. You know, like it was there. Like I think the pass to, like we said, the pass to Faison, I think he threw it where he wanted it to go, but it wasn't where it needed to go for where the wide receiver was going. Same thing with the Raritan play, right? But that's like, again, lack of reps with the player in the game. He did some things like in the pocket where it's like when he took the sack, it's like you can't do that. You got to get the ball out, right? But those are reps. Like those are just experience reps. You need to be better just kind of getting more time back there. I agree with Joey in that, like, you do have to, I think you really do have to try to keep him in the program because he looked good. And it's like you have Riley Leonard, who is a runner, right? I don't want to say he's injury prone because I don't think he is. He got rolled up, and it could happen to anyone at any time, right? Especially because he was in the pocket, so it's not like he was running and being physical that way. But it's just like, I think Steve Angeli, he showed me enough. We've mentioned it. Every time you see him, he looks good. And now this was a real game where, it didn't have to look this good. He didn't have to look this poised. He didn't have to look this accurate. He didn't have to throw the ball as well as he did. I mean, he's running, and like, look, he made a mistake a couple of times where he delay a game. He wasn't focused on the play clock, and that's his bad, right? So it's what,
I'm
second
actually kind
and
of
15?
surprised that didn't happen more often.
Yeah, and it's 2nd and 15, and Freeman's getting on him. Like, you gotta like, the second time it happened, Freeman's getting on him. You got to notice it. You got to be ready to go. They call a pass play. He scrambles around, and he lowers his shoulder and runs over a guy. It's like, I just made a mistake. I'm getting a first down, and I'm going to make it happen. Like, that to me is like moxie. It's confidence. It's competitiveness. All the things that you want out of a quarterback. I thought he played great. I thought his body language was great. I thought his command was great. I loved how the ball comes out of his hand. I've always loved it. Like, when I saw him at USC last year, I was like, man, he throws a good pass. So I was really impressed with him. What is your take on this, Jamie?
Yeah, I think every time you see him, he's accurate, and that's the thing. Like you said, those misses, those aren't misses where you're not giving your guy a chance. Like, Faison could have still had that ball, would have had to make a great catch, but he still could have had it. Where I think you would see with Sam Hartman this year, I mean, some of his misses are like bad misses, right? Like, and you just don't see that with Angeli, and that's an absolute credit to him, right? And I just thought, like, even the stuff, like, there's the one play that sticks out as like kind of like a poor Angeli play. It was that 1 3rd down where Payne's leaking out of the backfield. He's not wide open, but the ball's got to get out there. The ball's got to get out. He's short of the sticks. You got to get the ball out and hope the guy makes a play, right? That's
because of the pressure.
Because of the clock. That they're bringing, 5 or 6 or whatever they were bringing on that play. And yes, Tosh Baker made a mistake. Like, obviously, he's got to protect his inside. Did a bad job on it. He's got to pick up that twist. Didn't do it. So that's the reason the rusher came free. But you still have to assume that pressure could still get there. Ball's got to get out. And then obviously he spun into a sack and whatever. And that's how it ended up. But that was it for really kind of like, man, that wasn't a good play, where you're like, man, he really looked inexperienced there. There just wasn't a lot of that. And man, that's a total credit to him, because you get put in these situations where, you're there and you don't have the best, you don't have your best line. You don't have Joe Alt and Blake Fisher there. You don't have all these guys who start all this time. So it's a tougher situation. Like I said, Guduli put him in situations to win, but he did. Then he did win, right? And he just was really kind of smart about it. Obviously ran the ball well too. That's the other thing that I've been saying about him too. He's a way better athlete than people give him credit for. I think, obviously they got to try to keep him in the program. I think that's obviously, but I think people, the only reason he'd be looking to get out is if he wants to get out.
Yeah.
Like he wants to get out, because I just don't know. Or he's under the impression that when the time comes, he's not going to get a fair shake at being the quarterback, not just this year, but after Leonard. If that's the case, then obviously he should get out, whatever. But I don't think that's the case. I think they'll make it kind of similar to what they did with Buckner this year, in the spring where they're going to give him a lot of reps. I think he's going to split reps with Leonard in the spring. And, we'll see what Minchie gets doing Carr as well. I mean, unfortunately for Carr, that's just the kind of situation where I just don't think he's going to get a ton of reps in the spring with the team, with like first and second team. He's probably not going to get a ton of that. But it just like people could say like, man, all these teams probably want Angeli now.
I was thinking that. So I was thinking like he is going to get an offer or some kind of opportunity. It's going to be made known to him that he there's something there for him.
Sure, that'll happen, but it's like the kind of thing where this is why it's, even though Buckner, we can all say like, man, I don't know if that's a good situation for Buckner, like him going to Alabama. But can you blame him when it was like Alabama didn't have a starting quarterback? It's like your offensive coordinator, previous offensive coordinator is there, all that. It was like he just is basically like shoot your shot.
Yeah.
And he went for it and didn't work out. Okay. And then now he's back at Notre Dame trying to be a lacrosse player or whatever. But like, I think with Angeli, where would he go that is a good program? Because a bunch of bad programs would be like, Steve Angeli, come on down, be our starter.
Yeah.
But what about the good programs? The good programs would say, hey, we want you, but you got to compete. It's like, well, that's the same as Notre Dame. So I don't know. I don't see it with that. Like, I don't see that, especially because he was an early enrollee too, where you could be like graduate in 3 years and have 2 years left of all this. There's all these other factors that go into it. Right. So, like, I don't know the quarterback situation of every power, 4 team. But that's the other thing. So, like, let's say Oregon State was like, Angeli, we want you. It's like, well, Oregon State's in limbo next year. Like, what are they doing? Does anyone have any idea? Or just let's just say like, well, it's a bad example because I was going to say Michigan State because whatever, right? Like, because they already got Aiden Childs.
Yeah.
But let's just say Illinois, whatever. I have no idea what their quarterback situation is like. Just say Illinois was like, man, we want you. Okay, you come in here, you have a great chance to start. You're probably going to be the guy. So he can win 5 to 7 games and do whatever. Like, does he really want to do that? Maybe he does. If you really want out, then you go to that situation. But it's just like, I don't blame, like, say, Tate Rodemaker for leaving Florida State when it's so obvious they're just like recruiting over him. And it's like, the buzz is that Brock Glenn, they think is going to be the next guy after the transfer thing. And okay, yeah, get out, man. Do whatever. But I think with Angeli, like, I don't see how anything, like, they clearly like put out social media stuff like it's peanut butter Angeli time, like right after Hartman opted out.
Yeah,
like they're making it be like, okay, it's his team for now, right? They never said, okay, well, him and Minchie are going to compete for the job. Like, it was like, no, Angeli, he's going to be the guy who starts this game and right away and so forth. And that's kind of how it went. And so, unless Notre Dame tells him like, yeah, it's probably not going to happen for you here, I don't see why he would leave. Unless something just opened up that was like too good to say no to, but I just don't even know what that could be. I don't even know.
Yeah, I think that something would present itself post spring probably. He would want a spring game or a spring practice situation, I'm sure. But I always feel, and I've talked about this a bunch, like if he sticks it out at Notre Dame, he will have an opportunity like to be the starter, and it'll be like the favorite. That's how it always is, right? Like it just if you stick it out, hang in there, your time will present itself. It just kind of works out that way. And so, but I don't know where he's at. Like maybe he just wants to play. Maybe he because he clearly is good enough to play, and like he's a very good football player. And first of all, like Tommy Reese gets a lot of flack for stuff like this. This was a good eval. He's good.
Yeah.
He is a good football player. So that was a good eval by him. And so he did a good job. And so I just like, I think for Notre Dame, it's like that you put the press on him in a way, and to Joey's original point, like you put the press on him. It's like, hey man, like we see something here. We see something. And it probably going with Leonard. You probably are. There's just a different, like, honestly, I think Riley Leonard could be Steve Angeli, but just with better legs. That's how I see it could happen. But I think they could tell him, like, hey, like, we think this is something here. And you try. Like, because I could, I'll see some guys where it's like, hey, man, like, if you want to go look, go for it, and I think Notre Dame should definitely make an effort to kind of keep him around. Just some stats here to kind of back up what we've been talking about. Notre Dame 8 of 13 on third down. This is a very good performance. Just against anyone, it doesn't matter. Like you're that much, you're that effective on third down. You're doing a really good job. 23 total first downs, 12 rushing first downs, 0 for Oregon State. To your point, Jamie, about like I can't believe they didn't try to run. Like Fenwick's pretty good. And I think they needed to lean on him a little bit more to give themselves a better chance. Only 44 plays offensively for Oregon State. 6.8 yards per play for Notre Dame. So that's, again, a good performance from them. I think Gino Guidugli acquitted himself very well. Kind of in a way like similar to his quarterback, where I thought, if you got to have a guy to call a game like this, Gino Guidugli is perfectly fine at it. Do a very good job. Same with Steve Angeli, but you kind of feel like there is a bigger role out there for those guys. Defensively, Jamie, let me just put up the defensive stats real quick. Xavier Watts leads the team with 5 tackles. They're not going to have a bunch of high defensive numbers because they weren't really on the field, only 44 plays. Xavier Watts leads the team in tackles with 5. He had that half sack on, I think it was the 4th down play or the 3rd down play. They tried to roll out the quarterback. Botelho, who you had mentioned, 5 tackles, 1 sack, 1.5 tackles for loss. He went down with the shoulder. We kind of have to check in on that. It looked like either maybe it was a stinger. Hopefully it was a stinger, or maybe it was some sort of a separation type deal. But you mentioned he's been dealing with injuries throughout the year. Was there anything you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, I hope it's not this, because I've had a thing with my shoulder that, I mean, it's very common for football players, but like especially guys on defense. When you're tackling guys, it's called like subluxation, where your tendons get stretched. So it's like your shoulder separates, but it like kind of pops back in right away.
Yeah.
But it's like gonna pop out all the time, and it's super painful, and it's just like, yeah, you have to get surgery to correct it. If it is, I hope it's not that. I thought that he played really well in this game. Obviously, they're playing against 2 young tackles, so he should have played well, right? But he did, and he's not healthy. Like, he hasn't been healthy all year, and he went out, and the thing with him is just like, even that sack on that play, it's just motor, right? Like, just motor, and you just want to see that. And like, I mean, it wasn't like there was one standout in the game, but that's just how it's kind of been for Notre Dame all season, where it's like, yeah, it's really like a collective effort where you're like, I mean, you could point to like 4 plays where you're like, man, Howard Cross just dominated on this play. Or like at the very beginning, the first couple series, you're like, man, Mills just really just owned this guard here. And just, there was all this kind of stuff like up front, or like JJB beats the tackle, gets the forced fumble, whatever, right? Like, there are those kind of things that stood out up front. And then, like, you could just, all these other things where think of how many times they ran play action and there was no one open.
Yeah.
Like there was no one open. And he had to just throw it away. And really, and he was obviously pressured, pretty much the whole game too. But I mean, I just loved seeing that. The one thing I'll say on defense, I just love seeing that safety.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't love to see a safety in those situations? But great job with the point of attack by Josh Burnham. I mean, Josh Burnham, just whenever the guy plays, the guy looks good. Like he's just really. I mean, I think he's going to be a big factor for Notre Dame next year. I really do. And another year of development too. Like I'm excited to see him, but love to see obviously Bertrand in there, and Drake Bowen got in there on that too.
Yeah.
Love to see that for him. Love to see Adon Schuler flying around out there. And I mean, I don't want to pick on anyone, but if you really look at like all of like the negative plays in the fourth quarter, almost all the receptions came against Chance Tucker, and I almost felt bad for him because it was just like that was just how it went on those things. And even then, it's like he get beat by like a great catch.
He gave up another long play. Maybe it was against Pitt. Well, like that was a great catch,
great coverage, and like great throw, and great catch.
This kid has given up like this catch, like he's like attached to the receiver, arm in, and this kid's like half of a centimeter of his knee lands inbounds. Like it's incredible catch. Like that's like not bad coverage. I feel bad just because it's like it's to his name. It happened 2 times this year where someone made an incredible catch against him against good coverage. That's tough. I hate to see that because I think his coverage is good. But yeah, I mean that was kind of the only negative thing to your point there. I think JD Bertrand. I mean, we heard yesterday he was dealing with something, whatever it might be. He's been hurt all year. He's out here. All the other captains opted out of the game for whatever reason, the reasons that are there, and he's out there playing hurt, slamming in the line again on the blitzes, and just throwing his body around. And you just have to appreciate it, right? Like it's not anything against anyone who wants to opt out because that's college football today. But he didn't. He stayed, played in the game, and he just like he's putting it on the line. Same thing with Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who got to be a captain for this game. So it's like you have to like recognize those performances, right? Not against any player who chose not to play in the game. But you just have to know.
Yeah, you appreciate it.
Yeah, you appreciate it, and you want to put it out there. What do you say about someone put in the chat here? Rajon put it. Tosh Baker is a huge human.
He is a huge human.
He is a huge human being. What did you make of Tosh Baker and Charles Jagusaw in this game? How they played?
I mean, I thought they had good moments. I thought they had some bad moments, right? Like, I would say that they had more good than bad, but they look like guys who weren't starters the whole year. That's how I would kind of put it. Like I saw a couple of really good blocks from Jagusaw in the game where I was like, man, this big boy can move, and he can, when he latches onto you, it's a problem. But I also see like he's got to play with better leverage in certain situations. He's, getting driven back on some on pass pro where he's got to anchor a little bit better. But he did, I think for the most part, did a pretty good job in the game. And I mean, certainly go back to Joe Alt's first game against Cincinnati when he came in the second half against Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And you're like, Joe Alt looked good. It was very similar where you're like, Joe Alt looked good. And you're like, and he also got beat by Myjai Sanders bad a couple times, which is what happens to a true freshman against a really good player. And they had good edge rushers. Like I said, all the guys opted in, and they had a good pass rush. Yeah, I mean, I think what you saw from all those guys is like, for both those guys, is enough to say that, I mean, Jagiso obviously is going to be a competitor for one of the starting tackle spots next year.
Yeah.
That's pretty obvious. But I think with Baker, it's enough to be like, if he wants to come back, then you want him back. Like, to be a guy, because at the very least, he's a guy who can step in and play, and I've always said about Tosh Baker is, like, the person who mentioned he was just a monster human. He is a monster human. It's like, if this guy doesn't play in the NFL, like, something went wrong along the way, because guys like him, if you just saw him walking down the street, has anybody's ever walked beside him? Like, I've seen him like walk right up next to him before, not just at practice, but just around. Like, I saw him around South Bend, and I'm like, this dude is massive, massive. Like, he's a different level of human. That guy should be an NFL player. And I'm not saying he's going to be, but that's what he should be and could be. So it's probably like, the fact that he hasn't become a full-time starter in 4 years, that probably means he's not going to be. But it also doesn't mean that he can't be a guy who helps and plays next year. I will say, though, Emil Wagner, didn't win the starting job in the game. Man, he was crushing dudes in the run game on the last drive when he was in, though. So that looked good. So, I mean, I wouldn't count out Emil Wagner because he didn't win the job for this camp for this either, because who knows, right? And I also still think that, like, no doubt, no matter what happened in this game, if a good offensive tackle that you think is starter quality is available, like Notre Dame starter quality, because you can get a random Power 5 starter quality guy right now, but like actual guy that can be up to the standard that Notre Dame has had at tackle, then you get him. You do whatever you can to get him.
Yeah. The Wagner thing was kind of like, it's one of those deals, like, you kind of want him to win it, just because of the youth and what it could mean moving forward. But I thought Tosh Baker acquitted himself pretty well, right? Like, I remember just a couple of times I remember thinking, like, you know what, that's good. Like, that's a good block he's doing, right? Like, he doesn't look like a total disaster out there. Like the last time we saw him in bulk was 2021, and it looked real bad. Yeah. Right. And Baker did not look like that.
He was not ready to play.
He wasn't ready to play. And he was completely, like, this was a completely different order of magnitude of just the level that he was at. So, like, good job, like, by him on that, And, like, for anyone who's seen him, like you said, you've talked about this with me for as long as we've been doing the show. Like, he looks the part. He looks like a guy who is enormous. Like, he truly is. And I don't think, like, unless you've, like, been down at his level, it really doesn't, kind of stand out. It's like, man, like, how are people this big,
Yeah.
And so there's something to be said for that, right? There's something to be said for just having a guy out there. Like, Oregon State's got to be like, this guy is the guy who can't get on the field, like him. This is who they're bringing out. So it's important to look the part.
Well, okay, so I just want to mention,
your football team.
Oh, sorry, because you were doing the seg.
I totally was. I was segging it. The point. It's important. It's too smooth. I was trying. It's important. It's important to look the part for your football team and for your website or your social media page, whatever it may be. And if you want to look the part, head over to vsrmediacompany.com, which is founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800 9106. I can't believe that's never happened before. It's the first time ever. Last show of the year, and that's what happened. But what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say because sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, Blayberg, who because he mentioned that when you watch the game over, he struggled, and I think by Notre Dame standards is what I'm saying. Yes, he was not up to the standard of people like getting on Blake Fisher because man, Blake Fisher's playing bad. He really wasn't playing that bad. It's just that he's not even wasn't playing close. He wasn't playing close to Joe Alt or even, any of the previous elite tackles of the past. And it's fair. That's how people should be measured. But I also think that in this game, you're asking a guy who hadn't played all year, and now all of a sudden he's starting in this game, and he's going to have some bad plays. And listen, not to name names, but there was someone I know who was yelling about one other lineman during the game. And I was like, that actually wasn't his fault. It was another guy's fault. And it just, but you could go out and pick plays, and there's across the board where you're like, Coogan missed this block. Shrout didn't protect his inside here. Craig gave too much pushback on this, right? The nose really got under his pads here. You can really pick out a bunch of that stuff over the course of the game as to why this run didn't hit, this thing didn't work that well. You can find a lot of that stuff over the course of the game with all the guys, right? And it's not that necessarily anyone played bad, but it's just guys had bad plays. That was a thing in the game, which is why even though what did Notre Dame find? It ran for 236 in the game, right?
Yeah.
Ran for 236 in the game. They weren't dominant in the run game. Notre Dame was not dominant in the run game. They not even close, really, right? And that's because even if you think about it, think of how many plays that Price and Love made a guy miss in the hole, right? A significant amount where they got yards after contact, right? And I think you'll see in this game that the yards before contact in this game wasn't great, because man, I was just dying for, first of all, that Gary Danielson comment about Jeremiah Love not being explosive. I was like, oh boy, I mean, just
definitely knew he was talking about there.
Yeah, definitely knew. But I think most people just been dying to see Jeremiah Love get a big hole to run through the whole year. And he's gotten maybe 2 or 3. That's just, and sometimes that's just how it works, right? You don't get it, and you got to make something out of it. He made something out of nothing on his touchdown, which was just fantastic, right? But even that play where Price, which was a great job, right? He stayed patient with it and hit it at the right time and made one guy miss, and then all of a sudden he broke it. Love even hasn't had a lot of that where it's he breaks it to one guy, and then it's and then there's daylight. He just hasn't been lucky enough to have that. Because I'm telling you, that is going to happen for him, obviously, way more next year with the more touches he gets. And for people like Gary Danielson who aren't aware of how fast Jeremiah Love is, they're going to be blown away by how this. And eventually, you're going to see them throw the ball to Love too in ways where you're oh, he's matched up in a linebacker, and you're oh, that's a house call. He's got that kind of speed.
And that's something that Denbrock can take advantage of, right?
Yes.
Take advantage of. And that's why you want to bring in someone like him. I want to mention Gordon Butler with Super Chat. Thank you very much, Gordon. Zone Reed is going to cook next year with Leonard. And Jelly tore off some chunks today on good pulls. Absolutely. That was a nice little treat that Steve Angeli gave us today. Made some really good reads there. Had some really nice runs. Steve Angeli showed something in the running game that I think that it'd show up in the scouting report, where teams got to say okay, this is in there. We got to be worried about it, right? It was good enough to that. So good job by him on that front there. I think it's interesting, like going into the game, like when the opt-outs were happening, and not just that, but like the transfers, right? So like Flores leaves the team, Tobias Merriweather leaves the team, and like Braylon James leaves the team, and there was so much like, is Notre Dame going to have anyone to play receiver for Notre Dame in this bowl game? And like, it just ended up not only not being a factor, but like Faison goes over 100. Jaden Thomas has a good game. I mean, Matt Salerno's out there making diving catches, right? Like Jaden Greathouse. Like it totally worked out. It worked out fine. Faison, he's just good. He's good. You get like it. People say things like, it's kind of like to the point where you're kind of you're kind of taking a dig at Notre Dame. It's like, well, this guy is a former lacrosse walk-on or whatever. And it's like, and notably, by the way, did you see KK Smith out there? I didn't see him out there at all.
I didn't see him out there.
I don't remember seeing him out there. So like, it just,
maybe
like,
he got in at the end. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's like you see him play, and it's like, this guy, if he was a force, like I've said, if he was a 4-star freshman, you'd absolutely say, you know what, that earned his ranking, right? He looks good. He fights for the ball. He's good in the open field. Obviously, he's great on punt return. Like I said, like, what was it, the Pitt game, where I was like, he's going to be Notre Dame's punt returner for the next 4 years, and he is now, right? Like, he's going to do it. He looks completely comfortable returning kicks. Obviously, he's, like I said before, he's very good, with run after catch and things of that nature. Like, he's a really good, like, jet sweep guy. He's got so many things that he brings to the team. Jamie's hanging in there. Good for you, buddy. So it's just there's a lot there, and then when you factor in the fact that they're bringing in Chris Mitchell, and they're bringing in Bo Collins, right? And you're just adding to that group. Then the freshmen come in. Notre Dame's got something going on at wide receiver in 2024. Jamie, what's your read on that situation?
Yeah, should also point out, as someone mentioned, Deion Colsey never saw him today.
He was out there. He was definitely
out there. Okay.
Yes. But they obviously didn't throw him the ball.
Yeah. I mean, I think Jaden Thomas, just how he was used today, is kind of like how he should be used.
Yeah.
He is, like, first of all, it was funny because it is one of those things where Jaden Thomas, once you see him, you're like, he's a big dude. He is basically like an H-back in playing wide receiver. So he can do all these kind of extra things there, but then he can also be used on, like, like those little RPOs and those little, like, play action stuff where he's just leaking out, and you just dump him the ball and get him to run through one tackle and get 10 yards. Like, that's kind of like what he can do. Like, his touchdown was like a play where it's like just finishing, because he's just a big, strong dude. And that's exactly kind of what you want. And I think that's what it's like and I don't even know if he's, like, fully confident, because after, anyone who's had a hammy, it takes a while to be fully confident.
Yeah.
To go, like, all out. So I don't even know if he's, like, fully confident in doing that yet, but he is going to be a factor for Notre Dame because he can do all these things. And, like, I mean, Jade Greathouse barely even got the ball thrown his way in this game, and I think he's going to be. Coach, why are you obsessed with my facial expressions, bro? It's just, this is the funniest thing to me. Sorry, I keep seeing he's like saying I got the ultimate poker face.
You do,
yeah,
true fact.
I mean, I think it's like the Hulk, right? Like, the Hulk's angry all the time. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
My kid's in kindergarten. I'm sick all the time, so that's why I got the poker face. But yeah, I mean, I do think that Notre Dame is lacking in terms of, like, they kind of need, like, either one of Mitchell, which probably would be most likely Mitchell for me, to kind of hit and be like, oh, this is a guy for them. I think that is important for the receiver position next year, because it's just too much to expect any of the freshmen. As you know, we've said most of the time too, like even 5-star freshmen, like you don't see, like, other than Michael Floyd, and AJ Green, and like, there's just so few that really are true impact day one guys, right? There's so many true impact day one guys that it's usually like in year 2 where they make that big jump, because there's just so much that goes into that transition, which is why I think it's exciting to see like Greathouse and Faison next year. That's going to be exciting to kind of see where they're at. But I do think, like, being able to, like, stretch the field, attack down the field, obviously love seeing the slot fades, love being able to take advantage of that kind of stuff. And I don't know, like, here, to me, it's guys making plays after the catch and the toughness after the catch was, like, probably, like, the best thing about the receiver play today.
Yeah. Pops is here. We should have mentioned it at the beginning, and that's kind of my fault. But if you haven't heard if it was on the broadcast, Jaden Mickey's mother, who was dealing with very bad colon cancer. I mean, it's been a long time, and I think the diagnosis when we heard about it was pretty. It was like terminal. And it's been all year that I think she was in hospice for most of the year. So it was his dad, Lamar Mickey, put out on Twitter that she passed away, overnight, basically in the middle of the night. And it's the prayers to his family, anyone who's dealing with the loss of that. It's terrible. It's terrible for a college player, a college age person, to lose their mother like that. He has been, he is like the kind of the courage that he's shown throughout this has been amazing to me, just because you're dealing with this. I mean, she's obviously not going to make it, right? And but he wrote a book over the off season, like last off season, he wrote like a children's book. So he's doing that with his time. He plays in this game, and I kind of knew he would, just because of the way that's been handled. It's nice to be around your friends and your teammates, and kind of doing a normal thing. But it's sad news that this happened. And so, Pops, thank you for bringing it up, Pops, because I should have done that earlier. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, just condolences to the Mickey family.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just heartbreaking. And it's just one of those things where, when you know that there's like a loved one, that it's like when they're in hospice care, and that, there's a time limit on that. In a way, it can be harder, but it also can be a little bit easier too, to just because you get to kind of process your grief during that time
over time.
Yeah. But I can't even imagine, playing like that. He's played this season and still played the season, and then played in this game. I really just wish the best for him and his family. And I really, man, it's just heartbreaking stuff. And I just don't know how anyone could be completely rooting for him, to just ball the heck out next year and just have a great year. And, just hope to see that from him. And just a tremendous, tremendous loss.
Yeah. So strength to them, and as they kind of process this and deal with it. And as we wrap up the show here, Jamie, I think it's a good time to end. Just first of all, thank you to everyone this is our last instant reaction show, like I said at the top. And thank you to everyone who has tuned in. It's been a great year. We had lots of fun. The show has grown. I think we've made a bunch of improvements to the show. The show is only growing, and we really appreciate everyone for being a part of it. It's awesome. I love doing this. I love talking ball with Jamie. It's a total privilege to be able to do this, man. You know so much about the game, and it's awesome to do that and interacting with everybody. There are so many people in the chat who are here literally every show, and it makes it worth it, right? Like, we wouldn't do it if people didn't care and didn't tune in. And so I know there's like a ton of people who always tune in and they don't comment or they don't leave a comment, and we thank you as well. It's awesome. It's a privilege to do this. It's a privilege to talk about the team. It's a privilege to talk about Notre Dame. It's all good, man. And on to 2024. Anything you want to say, Jamie? Parting shots on the 2024?
Yeah, just hope just echo everything you said about the people that are listening or watching like every week. Like, obviously, like, there's the people who comment all the time that we see all the time, but then we also hear from people that don't comment all the time that were like, hey, I listened to the show and this or that, or this show helped me get through this drive, or this something like that. And that always means a lot when people give us that kind of feedback. And I just echo what Greg said. Like, I love doing the show with Greg. I think we have a great time. I think we put out a great product. It was a fun season. I mean, obviously, when Notre Dame wins 10 games, it's a lot more fun than when they're not playing well. Obviously, we're hoping for even better season for them next year. Hopefully, it's a CFP run for them. And obviously, we're going to still be doing it, on our weekly shows. So keep tuning into that. Just thanks everyone for tuning in, and just have a happy and healthy new year.
Happy and healthy 2024. We'll be light next week because I'm on vacation and we're doing something. So we'll be light next week. And then on to 2024 in the off season. And there's a lot to cover. There's a lot to go over. I think it's a very exciting time for Notre Dame right now. Like, the vibes are really good. It almost disconcertingly good, actually. But we'll see. But so that's the deal. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If this is your first time, please subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, so whatever it is, we are going live. Notre Dame finishes 2023 10-3 and with a 40-8 victory over Oregon State. Have a good New Year's, everyone. Enjoy the college football playoffs. Enjoy all those things. We'll be back to talk about all of it. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.